Today's shiur begins 11 lines from the top of Daf Pei Ches. We open with a quote from the Mishnah, Minechosim Mishuabodim. The Mishnah had mentioned back on Daf Pei Zayin that a woman who comes to collect her Kesubos, and in the meantime her husband had sold off all his properties to purchasers. She, however, has a lien on those properties. In her attempt to collect from the purchasers, the Mishnah said she has to swear. She has to swear that she had not received any payment, that her Kesubos was not paid up, and that's why she's turning to them now. The Gemara. Tanan Hasam. V'chein hayesoimim lo yiforu elo b'shvua. Likewise, yesomim are to be paid only if they take a shvua. Miman, from whom are the yesomim, the orphans, collecting that they need to take a shvua? Ilema milove, if you were to think that it's from the borrower, in other words, their father had loaned money and never collected, died before he collected it, and his heirs, his orphans, are coming to collect the money owed to their father. And this source is then teaching us that they do not collect unless they swear to the loveh. Well, this is hard to understand. The Gemara asks, Hashto avihen shokil below shvua. Mind you, their father would collect without having to take an oath. Ve'inu b'shvua, and they, as orphans, have to take an oath. That can't be. Elohochi k'omar. Rather, what the source is saying is as follows: V'chein hayesoimim min hayesoimim lo yiforu elo b'shvua. Orphans of a malveh, who are trying, the malveh is the lender, who are trying to come to collect the debt from the orphans of the loveh. Not from the loveh himself, but from his orphans, namely that their father owed these people's father money, so the orphans who are coming to collect need to swear to the orphans of the borrower. Omer Rabbi Zrika, Omer Rav Yehuda. You notice that we have an aleph here. A few lines later, there's a beis. It'll be a second version of what Rabbi Zrika is saying. Omer Rabbi Zrika, Omer Rav Yehuda. Lo shanu elo she'omru yesoimim. Lo shanu means this teaching that if they swear they will get paid. This is true only if the yesoimim of the loveh had said, Omar lonu Abba told us Lavisi uparati, that father had borrowed money, but father claimed he paid it up. Avol Omru, but if they said the following, Omar lonu Abba lo Lavisi, if father had said, I had not borrowed, Af b'shvua lo yiporu, then even with taking a shvua, even with taking an oath, the Yesoimim of the Malva will not get their collection. They will not be able to collect. Maskif lo Rava Adarabba. Rava asked quite to the contrary. We have a rule, Kol Omer lo Lavisi. People who make the claim, I never borrowed, and of course this is in the context of a person being approached with paying back the loan, pay back the money that I lent you, and his reaction is lo lovisi, ka'omer lo parati domi. It's tantamount to saying that I never paid back. Rashi, that appears on the fourth to last narrow line. Rashi says ka'omer lo parati domi. The kevadomer lo lova. Since he's saying I didn't borrow, modehu shelo para, he's confessing that he didn't pay back. Varei shtar mochiach olav shelova. There's a document, we didn't mention that before. There's a bill of collection that the collector is holding. So the claim that I didn't borrow in the face of a signed document that you did borrow is tantamount to saying I never paid back. I think it's explained elsewhere that when someone, just like someone who never in actuality never borrowed, so he never had to pay back, so that he never in fact paid back because he never really did borrow. So too over here, when someone is saying, when we know someone borrowed is claiming I didn't borrow, it's really as if he's saying I didn't pay back. Elo, the Gemara goes on, itmar hochi itmar. If Rabbi Zrika ever said anything, he said the following: Lo shanu, the Tanaic source that taught that you need to take that a shvur needs to be taken. This is Lo shanu elo she'omru yisoimim, where the orphans had said Omar lanu abba lovisio parati, where father said I borrowed and I paid back. So then we impose a shvur on the yisoimim of the malveh in order to collect. Avol omru, if the yisoimim of the loiva said Omar lanu abba lo lovisi nifroyin shaloi b'shvur, then the yisoimim of the malva are able to collect even without taking a shvur. Shekol omer lo lovisi, anyone who says I didn't borrow, ka'omer lo parati domi, it's tantamount to saying I never paid back. V'nifras shaloi b'fonov lo tifra elo b'shvur. This too was taught in the Mishnah, that a woman who is coming to collect her ksuba and the husband is not there, she needs to take a shvua that she hadn't received any payment yet. Omar Rav Achos Sar Habira, Maise Bo Lifnei Reb Yitzchok Nafcha Bantuchya. An incident came to the attention of Reb Yitzchok in Antuchya, name of a place. The Omar Lo Shonu Elo Liksubas Isha Mishum Chena. The Mishnah that is teaching us that she'll get collection through the court's intervention. Beis Din will descend upon the individual's property, not in his presence, he's abroad. This intervention on the part of Beis Din is for the woman to collect her ksuba. And that is because of the chena consideration. This is a point we've mentioned a few times in the past. Chena, from the word chen, grace, that that women shall find men, let's say, appropriate and suitable for marriage, knowing that they will have a financial guarantee if they should get divorced or become widowed. And in order to promote this, to energize this feeling within women, Beis Din will take action in order for the woman to collect her ksuba. Avol bal choiv lo. But when it comes to a lender of money who is trying to collect his debt from a borrower who is not around, so Rabbi Yitzchok Nafcha is telling us that the court will not get involved. In other words, the court will not descend upon his property in order to enable a lender to collect his debt. V'rova Omar Rav Nachman, afilu bal choiv, the same will apply to a bal chov, that the court will intervene. Shelo yehei kol echad ve'echad noitil moisav shel chavero, so as to prevent a situation of people borrowing money, taking loans, v'holich v'yoshim minasiyam, and goes abroad, settles abroad, and v'atonei dels b'fnei lovin, and if that behavior increases, so people will no longer lend money. You'll be locking the door of loans in front of those that really need to borrow, so as to guarantee a constant supply of loans. We ensure the lenders that when they come to collect, even if the borrower is not there, the court will intervene, descend upon the borrower's properties, and enable the lender to collect. Rabbi Shimon Omer Kol Zman Sheitevas Ksubasa V'chulei. Rabbi Shimon, as you can see on the on Pei Zion Beis at the top, the end of the Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon said something that needs explanation. He said, "Kol zman shi tevas ksubasa yorshim mashbiyan osa, v'im ein tevas ksubasa ein hayorshim mashbiyan osa." And what the Gemara wants to know is that is this comment of Rabbi Shimon, what part of the Mishnah is it a reference to? Rabbi Shimon Ahei. Rabbi Shimon is going on what? What part of the Mishnah? Before we go any further, take note of the structure. On the side of the Gemara we have a nosei, mivneh, and we indicate this goes until the end of Omid Beis. So it's one topic that will occupy us till the end of today's shiur. You notice the house marking. These are shlavim, these are stages, levarer, to clarify ahecha koi divrei Rabbi Shimon b'soif HaMishnah. So at each house we will present a different suggestion, and the double underline highlights the expression. This hadgoshas means we highlight the expression v'osa Rabbi Shimon l'meimar, and then that Rabbi Shimon comes along with his comment. Now the first suggestion, Rabbi Yirmiyah, aha, the Mishnah taught v'nifras sheloi b'fonov lo tifra elo b'shvua lo shna l'mezoini v'lo shna l'ksuba. A woman who is coming to collect from her husband's property, and he is not there, she needs to take a shvu in order to collect. No distinction being made whether she's trying to collect for her daily support, her mezoini, her food needs, v'lo shna l'ksuba, nor if she's coming to collect the ksuba, where he had sent her a get, let us say, long distance, and now she's coming to collect the ksuba, the husband's not there. In both cases, for mazonos and for ksuba, she needs to take a shvua. The also Rabbi Shimon l'meimar, and on this Rabbi Shimon says, Kol zman shetevas ksubasa yorsheha mashbiyan osa. If she's coming to collect the ksuba payment, so then her heirs will make her swear that she hasn't received any payment. We continue at the top of Omid Beis. Eino tevas ksubasa. If she's not coming to collect her ksuba, so then ein yorshin mashbiyan osa. Then the yorshim do not impose an oath upon her. And Rashi points out that they won't impose upon her an oath of apotropsis. Let us make a correction regarding the collection of mazonos. When we say that if she's coming to collect the mazonos, we're referring to a shivua. In the case of the Tanakama, they would have to swear that the woman would have to swear that her husband did not leave in her possession a separate account, like a pouch full of money for her mazonos purposes. So that's the Tanakama would be saying, Lo shna l'mazoni v'lo shna l'ksuba, she cannot collect unless she swears. Reb Shimon is saying that if she's coming to collect the ksuba, so then the orphans or the heirs can impose a shvu on her. However, if she's coming to collect mazonos, then the heirs will not be able to impose a shvu on her. And this machlokes between the Tanakama and Rabbi Shimon would parallel a machlokes between Hanan and his opposing opinion. His opposers, the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim, literally the sons of Kohanim Gedolim. It would appear to me that this, by setting it up like this, that the Chachomim and Rabbi Shimon are paralleling this earlier machlokes Tanoim. Disnan, and this is found later in the Masechta. Misha halach lemedinas hayam v'ishto tavas mezonos. A man who went abroad and his wife is seeking mezonos payment. Chonon omer tishava besof v'lo tishava batchila. That means that only if she's coming to collect her ksuba, besof means at the end, but it means that coming to collect her ksuba, then she needs to swear, but not if she's coming to collect mezonos. Nechliku alav b'nei Kohanim Gedolim. The b'nei Kohanim Gedolim argue with Chonon. V'yamru tishava b'tchilu b'sof. She has to swear on both occasions. So how would the parallel work out? Rabbi Shimon kechonon. Rabbi Shimon would be like Chonon that says for mezonos collection, for mezonos payment, the woman does not have to swear. And Rabbanon kivnei Kohanim Gedolim. And the Tanakama of Reb Shimon, that means the Rabbanon in our Mishnah, would parallel the Bnei Kohanim Gedolim that say that she has to swear to collect both types of collections, ksuba and mezonos. Maskif law Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes has a very basic problem with this approach. If Reb Shimon is referring to the case of Nefras Shelo B'Fonov, then the language of the Mishnah, Reb Shimon said, if she's tovas the ksuba, then the yorshin are going to impose a shvua on her. According to the explanation that we're hearing from Reb Yirmiyah, Reb Shimon is going on a case of a woman trying to collect from her husband who is abroad, but there is a husband. How could Reb Shimon be making a reference to a case like that when he refers to the heirs imposing the shvu on her? Heirs indicates the husband is not alive. But the case of the Mishnah of Nefras Shelo B'Fonov, the husband is alive. So now we read that in the Gemara. Maskif law Rav Sheshes. Hi, Yorshin Mashbian Osa, based in Mashbian Osa Miboyale. If, as Rav Yirmiyah suggested, that's going on a case of Nefras Shelo B'Fonov, then the one who is imposing the shvua would be the based in. And yet Reb Shimon speaks about the Yorshin Mashbian Osa. Elo Omar Rav Sheshes. So after Rav Sheshes raises his objection on Rav Yirmiyah's pshat, now Rav Sheshes gives us his pshat, his explanation. Aha. Rav Shimon is going on the following. The Mishnah that we're referring to is back on Pei Vav Amid Beis. It has to do with a woman who had received an exemption from her husband from needing to swear in order to collect. Now that husband died. Holcha mikever baila lebeis avia ushechozra lebeis chamia. The wife of the deceased left the grave after burying her husband, returning to her father's house or returning to her own house. Falonasis apatropa, and she does not become an executor. The executor is a capacity in which we learned back on Daf Pei Vav that a wife who becomes an executor would have to swear that she didn't pocket any funds. But if she didn't become an executor, ein ha-yorshin mashbian osa, then the yorshim, the heirs, will not impose a shvua on her. V'imnasis apatropa, and if this woman that had received an exemption from needing to take an oath, the exemption granted to her from her husband, if she becomes an apotropos at this point, Yorshin mashbian osal osid lavoy v'lo v'ein mashbian osal amashe ovar. They can impose a shvua on her financial conduct with regard to the estate from this point onwards. Because from this point onwards, the estate is theirs, it's not the husband's. The husband granted an exemption with regard to his estate, but it's no longer his estate because he's dead. He granted exemption for the woman needing to take a shvua regarding her dealings with the husband's properties. Right now, it's no longer the husband's property, so the previous exemption doesn't apply. However, v'ein mashbir osah mashover, they don't impose a shvua on any dealings she had in the past with regard to the husband's properties while he was alive. V'osa Rabbi Shimon lemeimar, and Rabbi Shimon comes to be lenient, and he says, Kolzman shetevas ksubasa yorshin mashbir osah. Only when she comes to collect her ksuba do the heirs impose a shvua on her that she would, through which she would indicate she did not receive a ksuba payment. Eino tevas ksubasa ein hayorshin mashbir osah. If she is not seeking her ksuba payment, then the yorshim cannot impose a shvua on her. What shvua? The shvua that the Tanakama said she would have to take, namely the shvuas apotropsis. Now, what about the explanation we gave before in the Tanakama? Didn't that make any sense? How could Rav Shimon say against that? So we'll explain. The exemption, the kula that Rav Shimon is saying, is that she will not have to take a shvua regarding the apotropsis, even on the apotropsis, the executor conduct of executor roles that she carries out will not obligate her to swear, even if it's after the husband's death, even if it's her dealings with the property, with the estate after her husband's death. And why will she be exempt? Well, the svara that Rabbi Shimon is suggesting is because she would be acting as an apotropis that had been appointed by their father. And the thinking here is going to parallel the opinion of Abba Shol that we'll see in a source very shortly, that an apotropis that's appointed by the father of the Yisayimim, if they knew that they would be subjected to taking an oath, they would not make themselves available to serve as an apotropis. And it's in everyone's interest that you have someone that functions as an apotropis, as an executor of the estate. So Reb Shimon then is coming to be mekil according to our understanding of things at this point. The machlokes between the Chachomim and Rabbi Shimon, as we're presenting it, would parallel a machlokes between Abba Shol and the Rabbanan in another source. Desnan, apotropos, one who is appointed as an executor. And there's always we'll say, the fear in people's minds that one who is dealing with other people's monies, with other people's estates, maybe they're going to pocket money. So, apotropos sheminehu avi yisayim mishava, an apotropos that was appointed by the father of orphans. So that apotropos, when need be, can be made to swear that they didn't pocket funds. Minuhu based in lo ishava. However, if appointed by the court, a court-appointed apotropos does not swear. Abba Shol mechiluf hadvorim. Abba Shol says the opposite. Mineu bezdin yishava. Mineu avi yisayimim lo yishava. There are svaros that explain these two opinions. The issue is, we'll say there's an underlying svara. Will the imposition of a shvua deter someone from accepting the role of apotropos? So according to the Tanakama, a person who's appointed by the father of the Yisayimim, even if they're made to take a shvua, that will not deter them from accepting apotropsis. The thinking being that the person who accepted the role of apotropos, when asked by the father to be so, and he accepts it, it must be because they had received some kind of favor from the father, and it's now their way of returning the favor. So the need to return the favor is an overriding concern whereby a person says, even if I have to swear, it's so important for me to return the favor, I would be an apotropos anyway. However, when it comes to the court-appointed apotropos, so there was no favor that the apotropos ever received from the court, obviously. So that a person who's appointed by the court would accept the role of apotropos only on the condition that he would not be put into that uncomfortable position of having to swear. Abba Shol says the opposite. He says that someone who is appointed by the court, it's a sign that the court respects the individual, has a lot of faith in the individual. It's an honor to be appointed by the court to serve as an apotropos. It's a sign of quality for the person. So to receive that court-approved status is so valuable to a person that even if they're made to swear, that won't deter them from being an apotropos when requested by the court. However, on a personal level, when a father of Yisayimim asks someone to, when the father of these orphans would have asked someone to be an apotropos, so they'll agree, provided that they don't have to take this oath. Because if they knew that they would have to swear at some point, they'll resist accepting that position. So now to parallel the opinions, Rabbi Shimon Kabashol, Rabbi Shimon, who had mentioned that if she's not collecting her ksuba, so the Yorshim are not going to be mashbiah her because she was an apotropos appointed by the father. And as Abba Shol says, an apotropos appointed by father does not swear. So Rabbi Shimon would parallel Abba Shol, v'Rabbanan k'Rabbanan. The Chachomim in our Mishnah that mention that the father-appointed apotropos, i.e. the widow, would have to swear, that's like the Rabbanan who said that Mineu Avi Yisayim Yishava. Maskif lo Abaye. Now Abaye raises an objection. If Rav Shesh's approach is correct, then the language in which Rabbi Shimon speaks doesn't reflect Rav Shesh's presentation. According to Rav Shesh's presentation, Rabbi Shimon was coming to be lenient vis-a-vis the Tanakama, whereas the Tanakama said, as a father-appointed apotropos, she would have to swear. Rabbi Shimon says she would not have to swear. So Rabbi Shimon is being lenient. The language, though, that Rabbi Shimon uses doesn't reflect that. So Rabbi says, "Hi, kolzman shetovas ksubasa." That Rabbi Shimon, that language, im tovas mi boyale. Rabbi Shimon should have said, instead of as long as she's tovas ksuba, he should have said, if she's tovas ksuba, then she has to swear. But if not, she doesn't have to swear. That would indicate leniency. But the language Rabbi Shimon used was not that at all. Ela Omar Abaye. Aho. Rabbi Shimon is arguing, he's on that which appeared in the Reisha of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, Kosav law, neder, ushvua ein li olech. And this, again, is a throwback to the Mishnah on Pei Vov, on Daf Pei Vov, the Reisha of the quote that we had that was brought by Rav Sheshes. That was the end of the Mishnah on Pei Vov. This is the beginning of the Mishnah on Pei Vov. Kosav law, the husband wrote to his wife an exemption from taking vows. Nedu shvua ein li olayich, eino yochol lahashbiah. V'chulei. The quote here is terse. Nedu shvua ein li v'lo liyorshai v'lo leboim b'shusi, olayich v'al yorshav al leboim b'shusech. If the husband writes over a broad exemption from vows and oaths in this fashion, ein yochol hashbiah lohu v'lo yorshav v'lo aboim b'shuso lohi v'lo yorshav v'lo aboim b'shuso. So that we'll say blanket exemption indicates that not only can the husband not impose a shvua on her, nor can his yorshim, his heirs impose a shvuah on her, nor people that bought property from him when she comes to collect. V'yoser Rabbi Shimon lemeimar, kol zman shetivas ksubosa yorshim mashbianosa. If she comes to collect the ksuba, even if she had received a husband exemption, she can be made to take a shvuah. Reb Shimon is being machmir, which the Lashon reflects, this version reflects that. And now this idea that Reb Shimon is saying that even if she receives an exemption, she can be made to take a shvuah in order to collect the ksuba. V'komiflegi beplukta de Abishol ben Imo Miriam v'Rabbanan. This machlokes between the Chacham and Rabbi Shimon, it will parallel a machlokes on Daf Pei Zayin between Abishol ben Imo Miriam and the Rabbanan, where Abishol ben Imo Miriam had expressed the approach or the practice that even though a woman had received exemption, there's an overriding principle of haboli para minichsi yisayimim eino nifra elo b'shvuah, that one who tries to collect from heirs, they have to take a shvuah. So that opinion would then be would parallel as follows: Rabbi Shimon ka'abashol. Rabbi Shimon, who here is the stringent opinion, he follows Abashol's opinion of stringency. Rabbanan, the Rabbanan that are the Tanakam of Reb Shimon will reflect the Chachamim of Rabbi Shimon that said that the exemption is effective even for her ksuba collection. She won't have to swear. That will parallel the Rabbanan that argue with Abba Shol ben Imo Miriam. Maskif law Rav Papa. Ha Tainach, Rav Papa says that this explanation will be good, might be good for the beginning of Reb Shimon's comment, Kol Zman Shetevas Ksubasa. Namely, that Reb Shimon is holding like Abba Shol ben Imosh Miriam, that when a woman is coming to collect the ksuba, she has to take the shvuah, regardless of the fact that there may have been some husband originated exemption. But Reb Shimon said something else. Eino toivas ksubasa mai ikol ameimar. What does the end of Rabbi Shimon's comment mean? That was not accounted for by Abaye's presentation. Elo Omar of Papa La'afuke mid Rebbe Ozer umach lukaso. This is a bit abbreviated, so Rashi explains. Let's look together and let's go through the Rashi on this. Rashi we're looking at is about a third of the way up from the end of the Rashi. Elo Omar of Papa La'afuke mid Rebbe Ozer umach lukaso klomar. Lo tema, don't say that Reb Shimon akosav lo neder shvuah l'chud polig. That Reb Shimon is coming to argue. Reb Shimon, who speaks about imposing a shvuah when she comes to collect ksuba, don't say that he's a reference or coming to argue only on the case of the woman who had received an exemption that the Tanakama spoke about. He's not coming to argue only on that. Ela akule milsa de Rebbe Ozer uvnei machlukoso polig. He's arguing with that which we saw back on Pei Vavam at Beis in the name of Rebbe Ozer and those that argued with him. As Rashi explains, Areisha v'Seifa Sham'inhu de Ko'amri Rebbe Ozer v'Rabbanan. That is, Reb Shimon heard Rebbe Ozer and the Rabbanan saying, Mashbiya kozman shiyurtze shvuas apetroipa heicha de lo potra min haneder umin hashvua. That where a woman did not receive an exemption from taking shvuas, so the husband can impose a shvuas apotropsis on her. Vafilu shelo b'shas tfias ksubasa. at any time, even if it's outside the context of the woman seeking payment for her ksuba. So that if there's no shvua exemption, that the Rabbanan and Rebbe Ozer back on Pei Vav would say that the husband can impose the apotropos shvua on her at any time. V'im potra min hashvua, afilu yorshim ein mashpian oisa kishenifras mehem. And if she received a shvua exemption, even heirs cannot impose a shvua when she's coming to collect from them. Kidikotani, as it taught there, neder ushvua ein li v'liyoshai, etc. That part of the Mishnah that spoke about a formal exemption, that exemption really exempts her. The Osir Rabbi Shimon Lameimar, Kolzman shetivas ksubasa yorshin mashbian osa. If the woman is coming to collect her ksuba, then yorshim can impose a shvua on her. Ve'afilu kosav lo neder ushvua ein liyorshai olayich ke'abashol. Even though she received an exemption, nevertheless, we saw the opinion of Abashol ben Imo Miriam that what can I do? We have an overriding clause or klal, a principle that that one who comes to collect from orphans needs to take a shvua. However, eino toivas ksubasa, if the woman is not coming to claim her ksuba, ein hayorshin mashpian al apotropos shebechai bailov afilu lo potra min hashvua. Yorshim have no right to impose a shvua on the almona if she's not coming to collect the ksuba, even concerning apotropsis that she had done in the lifetime of her husband. Ve'afilu lo potra min hashvua, even if she had not received an exemption. The Lesley, the Rabbi Ozer Machlekuso, the Amri Mashbiel Kozman Shirtza, because Rabbi Shimon does not hold from Rabbi Ozer and the Chachamim that appeared on Pei Vav Amud Beis that suggested she can be subjected to a shvua any time it is desired thusly. So the Rashi lays out the framework for understanding Rabbi Shimon, not just the framework but the details, when Rabbi Shimon imposes a shvua and when Rabbi Shimon does not impose a shvua, and demonstrates how Rabbi Shimon is coming to argue with that school of thought that was presented in the Mishnah on Pei Vav Amud Beis, namely Rebbe Ozer and the Chachamim that spoke about that a woman who does not receive an exemption can be made to take a shvuas apotropsis at any time. And Rabbi Shimon comes to argue with that, saying, no way. Only when she comes to collect the ksuba can she be subjected to a shvua. And that shvua is far-reaching even in the case of a woman who had received an exemption.